You know, when I was a little girl, I wore on a little chain around my neck, my mother gave it to me, a little ball with a little bit of water in it and a mustard seed. You ever have one of those? Most of us who grew up in the 50s and 60s probably had a mustard seed when we were little girls. They were all over the place. Remember that? I don't see them around like I used to. Everybody used to have a little mustard seed. We'd wear it because the thought was if you had the faith of a mustard seed so small you could move a mountain. You know, that's the default. That's the truth about us. If we just had that faith, we could move anything. We could do anything. And that's what this is saying. If you know this truth, nothing can harm you in any way. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing that can affect you. But think of that mustard seed. I was always thinking about moving the mountain. What was also in there with the mustard seed was a little bit of water, right? And I always say this, and you've heard me say this so many times, what is stronger, water or a mountain? I used to say this to Jeffrey when he was young, and I would say, what is stronger, a rock or water? And he'd think, he'd go, rock. And then I'd go, really? And he'd look at me and he'd go, water? It's only two choices, you know. And I said, yeah, think about that, because that water made the Grand Canyon. Water is so powerful that it can cut through the hardness of a rock. All the beautiful canyons and valleys that we see in our national parks and around the world, it's made by water that has moved through those. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely amazing when you think about how strong that is. But what is water? It didn't just pass through that rock once. It had to be consistent. So we have to be consistent. And so this thought says, my holiness is far beyond my own ability to understand or to know. So this truth, from my current perspective, I don't know it. I just have to know that it is there. But to understand it really isn't my job. From the perspective I have of so much junk in the way, it's hard to see it. But it's there. It says, yet God, my Father, who created this reality, this holiness that I abide in, acknowledges my holiness as his. This is his will for me. This is how we were created. This is our creation. Our will together understands that. When my mind is one with his, I know what that means. When it is not, I do not. When you feel those moments of oneness, those little holy instances the Course talks about, what do you feel? It's beyond, it doesn't have to be a particular place. It doesn't have to be a church. It doesn't have to be at the center. It doesn't have to be when you're reading only A Course in Miracles. You get this sense of oneness, of unity. You know, and that's what this is talking about. That is when our mind is one with his, our will together. That's when we understand it, and it is beyond any words we can say. It is a moment of peace that is as the Bible said, that would pass all worldly understanding. There's no reason for me to be at peace. Lots of stuff is going on in my life. You know, lots of challenges in other people's lives that I know. There's no reason for me to be at peace, and yet, because my mind is joined with God's and I can have that moment of peace, peace can reign. There's still a lot of people I need to deal with. A lot of unforgiving thoughts that are out there that I need to deal with. But it is in these moments of peace that we find the answer to those challenges. That's what this is saying. Our will together understands this. Our will together knows that this holiness is true.